Let's talk about product designers. In this lesson, we will look at how they used to work traditionally and how that role has changed in modern product teams. And I'll share some tips on how product managers should work with designers to get the most out of their relationship. In the old model, designers took requirements from product managers and used that to create their designs. In contrast, though, modern designers continuously collaborate with product managers and engineers all the way from discovery through to delivery. And to enable this continuous, intense collaboration, instead of sitting with fellow designers, the modern product designers sit side by side with the product manager and are a full partner on all stages from discovery through to delivery. And instead of being measured on the output of their design work, as they used to be in the past, the product designer is now measured on the success of the product. And so they have a much broader focus and tend to have many of the same concerns as the product manager. And they are deeply oriented around the value that the product brings to the customer. But good designers also understand that the product is in service of a business and they can incorporate those constraints into the design of the product. In other words, they consider not just the needs of the customer, but also the needs of the business. And designers can further understand that the user experience is as important to customer value as its underlying functionality. And they focus not just on the user interface, but the holistic user experience. So let's talk about holistic user experience design. User experience, or UX, is much bigger than the user interface. Some people even use the term customer experience to further emphasize the point. And UX is any way that customers and end users realize the value provided by your product, and it includes all the touch points and interactions a customer has with your company and product over time. For modern products, this includes interfaces as well as other customer touch points like email, marketing campaigns, sales process, customer support, and so on. With some products, though, UX also includes offline services, such as riding in a car summoned through Uber or staying in a house sourced through Airbnb. And good product designers think about the customer's journey over time as they interact with the product and with the company as a whole. And they like to ask questions like, how will customers first learn about the product, and how will we onboard a first-time user and reveal new functionality? And how might users interact at different times during the day? And what other things are competing for the user's attention? And how might things be different for a 1-month-old user versus a 1-year-old user? And how will we create moments of gratification within the product? And how will the users share their experience with others? And often, designers use prototypes to answer these type of questions. And these prototypes can range from sketches to low fidelity, mid fidelity, and high fidelity prototypes. And later in the course, we'll examine when to use each type, and you'll have a chance to build your own prototypes. And when designing things, designers have to consider both the interaction design as well as the visual design. And interaction design is concerned about how the user interacts with the various aspects of the product. And it focuses on ensuring that the experience is intuitive, learnable, consistent, and predictable. And visual design, on the other hand, considers things like the layout, the visual hierarchy, typography, and looks at things like the usage of space and contrast and color to create a balanced design. And today's user has more devices than ever before, with laptops and smartphones and smartwatches and smart speakers. And so designers are constantly challenged having to design for an omni-channel experience. So if you're building a user-facing product, it's critical to have a trained designer on your product team. Let's take a look at what happens when there is no designer available. So 3 situations are extremely common and are serious problems when there is no designer. Firstly, you as a product manager might try to design for yourself. Of course, if you're a design product manager, that's a different story. But if you aren't, in this situation, you have not been trained in design, and yet engineers clearly need design, so you might feel pressure to create wireframes, and so you cobble together some sort of visual design yourself. And then the second scenario, you as a product manager may not provide designs, but rather provide very high-level user stories to engineers. And to begin coding and do the work, the engineers have no choice but to work out the design themselves. And then in the third scenario, you may, as a product manager, provide an interaction design in the form of a wireframe, and then the visual or graphic design might be outsourced to an agency. And all three situations are serious problems because they rarely produce good results. They don't produce the holistic design that you're looking for. And unfortunately, many products, especially those serving businesses, have poor design. And they've been able to get away with this mainly because the user so often in businesses is not the person who makes the purchasing decision. But design of a product is today such a critical factor that it may ultimately decide whether your product succeeds or fails. So how can product managers work well with designers? Here are some tips. Firstly, make sure that they sit as part of the product team. And you might not be able to, as a product manager, make that decision, but you can certainly influence it. So as a product manager, I would be very vocal in insisting that a designer work closely with the product team. And that means sitting in the team rather than outside the team. And secondly, make sure that the designer is not just designing products, but helping also to discover the right products. So they are involved early on in the discovery stage. And we'll cover discovery in more detail in the next section. And the third tip is to fight any temptation you may feel to provide your designer with your own design ideas. Give the designer as much room as possible to solve the design challenges for himself or herself, because that's what they're best at doing. And finally, encourage your designer to iterate early and often. The best way that you can encourage this is to not get all nitpicky about design details with the very early iterations. Instead, encourage the designer to feel free not to just iterate on a particular design, but to explore alternative solutions to the problem. Okay, in the next lesson, we will look at the role of the modern engineer. See you soon.